amenity that we'd want to provide outdoors. So this first floor just gives you a better idea of what the uses are. Like I said, commercial on Glenwood with a residential lobby at the corner and amenity and bike storage, and on Fremont, 2-level loft units. So as we move up the building to the second floor, we'll have the second floor of those loft units. The retail and the lobby areas will all be double height, and we'll have a second floor of parking. This is a pretty typical floor that we'll have from the third floor up, that we have anywhere from 23 to 25 units per floor. And like I said, we're 126 units for the whole building. And these units pretty much stack all the way up, because we are building modularly. So these units come to the site pre-made at a factory, and then they're stacked on top of each other when it comes to the site. And the intention on that is that when we deliver a project that way, we're able to keep better control on quality in a factory. And then we're also, our impact to the neighborhood and the immediate area is lessened because the time of construction in the field will be a lot less. Once we get up to the top floor, on the corner of the intersection, we'll have an outdoor amenity with a amenity space on the 7th floor also. So I'll just run through so you can get a grasp some of the elevations of what we're doing. This would be the Fremont elevation, where we can see, well, our walk-up units will be a double height space. Our lobby is on the corner, and then we have a bike storage / bike workshop, you know, right next to that. And then the upper stories are units. This would be the Glenwood elevation, where we're getting retail frontage and then and lobby frontage on the corner, and then units above. And then these would just be the sides that you see to the west elevation, that currently has a 1-story building next to it. So most this podium level you won't see because there's a building in the way of that. And then our south side, and I'll go back to our site plan just for a second, is that elevation is this elevation right here. And the interesting thing about this is that there's a surface parking lot just to the south of us. So when we look at this corner, we put some extra emphasis on this corner because it will be exposed and be seen to a pedestrian. So if I flip back, when we look at this, this area here, when we look at it in the renderings, we've added greenery and certain elements to make that image softened up to what's exposed from the right of way. This is kind of what we're thinking of for materials. So we're looking at, you know, brick down here, masonry products with accent panels, and then the majority of the building would be metal panel, various different colors. And then we have a combination of different site lighting, you know, in terms of safety and function along here, along the street frontages. And we will be doing a lot of movable planters, movable seating, and then there is a fence, existing fence along the west property line that will be replaced. So I'll just go to more views of this. So this would be the view from Glenwood and Fremont. This would be a view down Fremont looking at the walk-up units. And so what we're suggesting is currently there's a 3-foot planting strip that's in the public right-of-way that will be continuing. the walk-up units and the entry will have movable planters, and short-term bike stalls. We'll be making planting strips against the walk-up units, so that there's, you know, defensible space. And then these walk-up units will be divided by more usable planters. They'll have canopies, all to create, you know, a better streetscape and walkable environment to Fremont. When we get down to the south end of the site where we have Ladonna Brewery, and we turn the corner into that soccer field where there'll be a lot of activity, or the brewery activities going on, we'll have the south side of the building lined with greenery also in our landscape plan. And this, what we're seeing here, is a view as if you were to walk out from that brewery, and how this building would look from that side, where we have their, we're relocating their patio where they'll be serving food and beverage, and then the miniature soccer field. And then we're creating layers of green buffers. So we'll have a combination of movable planters, some taller greenery, and then against our back wall, we'll have even taller greenery, you know, to start creating, you know, the space and what it feels like to be in between these two buildings, because we view them as a, you know, this building is completing the block right now. So otherwise, we have, you know, this was a packet to the city. This was a required shadow study. There are no single family houses directly adjacent. I think they're quite a bit of ways, and our shadows mainly fall on the intersection. So, but with that, are there any general questions about what is where in the building, or what we're doing at what part, that I can answer first?
I'm curious.
I have
about
one.
Go ahead.
When will construction start, and when do you plan to have it completed?
So construction, I don't know. Christian, maybe you want to answer that, because I was actually just working on a schedule today, and I think it could start, you know, sometime, you know, this fall or late summer. But it depends, you know, when we do projects modularly in a factory, kind of like creating cars. Other projects have to be in line, and it depends on timing of that also. So Christian, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, most likely late summer, and then we'd you know, shoot for a 10 to 12 month construction schedule to open the building early summer of 2022.
Christian, can you show a picture of you guys hauling the units and putting them down? I thought that was cool. The modular units.
Okay. I can stop sharing and bring that up. If somebody else has a question while I bring that up, I can.
Aaron, I have that up on my screen. I can share it.
Sure.
Will Ladonna and your project share an entrance?
No, they won't. There'll be two completely separate buildings. However, there will be some access easement property things put in place so that our curb cut, that I believe they'll be shared, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christian, because the brewery's surface parking lot will connect to our driveway, you know.
Okay, yeah, that's what I want to know, if you would share just at least the curb cut.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll be, the curb cut that's on the property to the south is the one that we're we'll be relocating or closing that one off and relocating one on the property we're looking at. So Fremont will also see a curb cut closure also.
I also have a question. You said 100 and some units. What size are the units and where do you see the rents falling?
I can speak to the first part of the question. We have 126 units. The vast majority of them are studios and 1-bedrooms. We do have up to 2-bedroom units. That's our largest unit. But out of 126, I believe 10 of them are 2-bedroom units right now. So, but
When you say
Christian,
1-bedroom, a percentage look like they're a bunch of alcoves. Are you calling those 1-bedrooms or are you calling those studios?
We're calling them out as alcoves. So we have about 20 alcoves, 44 1-bedrooms. And we find that that gives a good mix of, the 1-bedroom feel. Whether you want to go smaller or larger, the prospects rather. As far as rents go, we plan to include inclusionary zoning. That will be 8% of units at 60% AMI. We've also started to work on a more detailed rent roll that will have a significant additional amount of units between the 60 and 80% AMI rent. And sorry, AMI is area median income rent levels. I think almost all of our studios will be below 70% area median income rent levels, and almost all, or at least the vast majority of our alcoves as well.
I just, one of the things that we run into is that Harrison traditionally has been a neighborhood with extended families. And we have yet to hear from a housing developer who would have units that would take into account that there's like multi-generational families where perhaps there's like a need for like a grandmother apartment, but also a need that's going to accommodate a family with like 2 or 3, possibly 4 kids. And it doesn't sound like that need is met in this building.
I want to support what Vicky is saying. We had one of the largest public meetings when we were presenting just before we presented the master plan to the city council. And at that meeting, there were some 230, 240 people there. There was a large representative from the Southeast Asian community, a large representation from the Somali community, and both those communities asked for 3 and 4-bedroom homes because they do have as Vicky said, the multi-generational families living there, and they also needed it to be affordable. And thus far, we have yet to find any of those.
Could I go one step further? And Vicky kind of addressed this. I presume the target audience given are singles and young singles and maybe young couples, because following up with both what Vicky and Vida said, there are no real large units to handle kids, family, any type of family. I think you said there were only 10 doubles or 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, that's correct. 10 2-bedrooms.
We have always supported development, but we want to make sure that when development is complete, that the people who started out living in the neighborhood can still have enough space to live in the neighborhood and to have their kids in the neighborhood and to afford to stay in Harrison.
Yeah, but this building gives us the chance for development in a piece of property that's been fallow for quite a long time.
If you remember back,
I support the development. I'm just bringing this perspective in because if you're not really familiar with the neighborhood and our large families, I mean, it's a great development that I would clearly support. And that's my dog talking in the background. I would clearly support the development, but we have to keep in mind that we do have large families.
And to follow up with that, Vicky, is one of the things, if you, those who may remember, we did a charrette back in '06. I mean, it was a long time ago, where we did the four corners. And we looked for high density on those corners, right? We actually discussed some even taller buildings, but we were looking for density. So I find that I'm supporting. Of course, I support it because that's some of the things that Pat and I, my brother and I, looked at when we had the building. It was to do something that would increase the capacity of that whole area. And across the way, Dave Phillips, if you remember, had some proposals also. So the upshot of this is the project as a whole is something to support. It's just, again, that we're continuing that mix that does not add more housing for the families that are living in the neighborhood. And I don't know how we're going to find that, because we do need development. So I'm pro on the development side.
Is there any chance that like a family could get a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom right next to each other, so they in effect have a 3-bedroom units, or a 3 bedrooms joining each other?
To simply answer that question, it's yes, they could do that. We're not marketing this property to any one, set of, renter. That's why we do a unit mix, everywhere from studios to alcoves, 1+10, 2 bedrooms. One important thing to note here is we are not taking down any existing housing.
Yeah, that's right.
So we are adding housing to the neighborhood, not replacing housing. And so we are not displacing anyone here. We are providing more options for people in the neighborhood.
I like what you're saying and support this project. I mean, personally, I think it's a good beginning on Glenwood. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, a lot of this is it's something we've been working for a long time, was to expand the ability to have more housing for the people who are already there. And that I know is difficult in from a developer's side. And I don't want to take away from the project, but it's just kind of having the discussion, keeping the discussion alive out there about, maybe it's wishful thinking, because the economics of doing this kind of development are really tough. Two sides of this: you have to make money. You have to have money to do the project, but you also have to make money to want to do the project. So, but I think it's an additive project. So I don't want to discourage anybody about pursuing this. That's, I don't think, our purpose.
No.
Can I ask a quick question? My name is Tara. I've been a Harrison resident for almost 20 years. And I just want to sort of echo what Vicky and some others have said, and wonder about, maintaining some diversity within our community. And I wonder about maybe having fewer units that are under that 70% or below AMI, but having at least a few units that are in that 30 to 40 AMI range.
Yeah, I think you guys, first of all, appreciate the comments. As a housing developer, one of the things we're trying to do with our technology is lower the cost of, construction, which has far outpaced household income, as I'm sure we've all read in the newspaper, locally, regionally, and nationally. This project is a privately financed market rate deal. We're not applying for any sort of public subsidy or grants. And so you're absolutely right. The economics have to work to, be able to finance the project. And, with construction costs and, material costs, lumber in particular, there's certain things we can and can't do. The reality, we'd love to be able to develop, larger units. The reality is you can't get the rent per square foot in many cases for those units to make the deal work. And so we have to work within the constraints of what, allows a project to get financed and ultimately built, because otherwise, the project stays on paper and doesn't add to the housing supply.
Again, I want to say, I absolutely support the project, and I agree with Pat and everything that's been said about it. It's definitely an amenity that's needed along Glenwood. And again, I am not a developer, and my favorite tool is a butter knife. So I don't know anything about screwdrivers or anything else. But if somebody were to get like a 2-bedroom apartment and a 1-bedroom apartment that were like next to each other, is it within the construction constraints? Is there any way to create doorways between the 2 units so there could be some easy access back and forth? I'm thinking if grandma lives in one apartment and the kids are in another apartment and the mom and dad are working, it's sort of like staying within your constraints, but trying to configure it in a way that it can accommodate more of the multi-generational family.
Maybe Christian, I can answer that. I really wish I could tell you yes for that, but that's a Minnesota building code or a fire code issue that wouldn't allow something like that to happen unless it was really just 1 unit. That's something that's out of our hands. So, but in other countries, I've seen units like that, and actually have lived in some in other countries, and they're really nice. It's just our building code here in Minnesota and most of the United States would not allow for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have other items on the agenda, so I wondered, would anybody like to decide that we should support this with a letter, or?
I would vote that we support the project with a letter.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second that.
Any further discussion?
Is there a
All-
quorum?
Yeah, I have some further comments that I'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
Sure.
What's considered a quorum for vote?
9,
9 out of how many?
18.
Okay, let me see. Sorry, go ahead.
I've got a quick question.
Yeah, Dave.
Are there any stormwater treatment requirements on this project?
No, this site is under an anchor, so stormwater infiltration or detention is not required. However, since we're adding a building to the site that has a larger roof, that stormwater from that roof will go directly into the storm sewer and cut off the runoff. So.
Given Dave's question raised another issue, the groundwater is fairly shallow there. Your covered parking, that's not going down below any low grade very far, just into the footings, or how are you handling that?
Yep, all the parking will be above the ground on level 1 and level 2. And yeah, no underground in this. There's like you said, a high water table level, and then also some organic soils that would cause problems for that. So.
And lastly, related to that, there's a plume of coming off of Girard. There's a plume of contaminants. Is that come to that site?
I don't believe we've seen any of that in our phase 1 report.
We're investigating that right now with a phase 2 environmental.
Who's doing the geotech on the project? Who did the geotech for you?
Braun did the geotech and
yeah, they looked. I think they looked at some of the site. I can't remember if it was Braun or geotechnical. Looked at those sites over on the corner of Girard, and I see Pat nodding. I think weren't those the people that did it on the corner, Girard and Second? I think that had, so there's some stuff out there that show the plumes that come through, and I thought they went up to the building that's on Girard that you're backing up to. Didn't come quite to the corner of our property line. It did just a little bit, but it came over up the street. So I'm not, don't mean to scare anybody, but it's to be aware of it that, because I'd like to see a project like this proceed.
Yeah, we appreciate that, and we are investigating that right now. So.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, I
I
had some comments.
Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, full disclosure, I work for DJ Architecture, so I don't think I'd be able to vote on this project. But I do want to speak just from the perspective of being a Harrison resident and representative here. And I want to add to what Tara was saying about this being affordable. I think it's not just about the larger unit size accommodating the larger families, but just general affordability. I commend the team at looking at 60 to 80% AMI, but in reality, the incomes in Harrison, the average is more like 34,000, which would be closer to like 30–40% AMI. So I'm hoping that your team can take a closer look at that and see if you can get more of a mix and lower some of those rents to really accommodate some of the current Harrison residents that would be looking for housing and wanting to stay in the neighborhood. And then the other comment I have is I really liked what you were doing with the landscaping and the streetscape on the Fremont side and the other sides, but I didn't see that as much on Glenwood. And I'd really like to see Glenwood be a comfortable and accommodating sidewalk and streetscape for people to walk along. And I know that that might be somewhat limited by what the city allows there. And I'm wondering if maybe you could talk about that a little bit and also comment if you could add more landscaping or building articulation along the Glenwood side to add to that value.
Okay. Thanks for the question. So in terms of the Glenwood side, you know, currently there are no street trees there right now. And we are in a pedestrian overlay district. So right now we have to push the building as close as we can to the north, and the right-of-way is a little bit out of our control, but that's actually the next step that we're going to be walking through with the city in our PDR meeting, or that's our preliminary development review, where all the departments from the city comment, and a representative from the right-of-way would be able to tell us, you know, if we were to actually have be able to have, you know, trees in grates or something like that. Because that's outside of our property line. As far as, yeah, the Fremont side, yeah, we had existing things in place on the street that allow us, you know, to increase the planting strip and stuff there. That Fremont has some advantages to it from previous applications that were passed, you know, a dozen years ago, you know, that allow us to do what we're doing on Fremont.
What happened on Fremont was the city for the Van White came in and purchased 2 feet off of each of those properties to widen Fremont. And in the drawers somewhere at H&A, there may still be, you could find plans that was a landscape study. Pat may remember, getting to be the oldest people here. There was a landscape study done back in the late 90s, completed, I think, in the early 2000s. It was done working with the county. That's a county road, and NSP, because part of it was to remove the wood power poles. And I'd say that it'd be at least worth looking at. The difficulty has always been that that's only a 5-foot sidewalk, if I remember, that runs along Fremont down at the what is it, XL building. That was an issue. We were trying to get some things happening down there a number of years ago. But going back to this, I would look and see if you could find those studies. I can't remember if there's any benefit to them, but at least to have that.
We have actually looked at those studies, and we have actually And I can explain that a little bit in further detail, so you can see how to address Ben's comment is, you know, in 2005, Met Council took an easement on the property, or 2 easements, one being a permanent easement that's 6 feet wide, that is right here, and then a temporary easement that expires actually at the end of this year. And you know, that was actually for Southwest Light Rail, you know, road improvements. So being that we have a permanent easement here, that's what I was alluding to, that this Fremont had some natural advantages that we're able to use. We're not able to really build permanent things on that, but we're able to use it to add greenery, you know, in front of walk-up units and use it to our advantage. Also, what was passed with that, when that easement was put in place, there was a condition on that easement of this 3-foot planting strip that, if you walk to the site today, you can see is pretty cut up by curb cuts and pretty spotty. That the condition on that easement looked like this 3-foot planting strip would have to be maintained and extended as much as possible, that's the intention behind what we're doing. So there's a lot of history on Fremont, and we'll see in the near future as we go through the process with the city what we can get accomplished on Glenwood. However, I know this neighborhood and all of your neighborhoods, you know, have gone through a lot where the transportation, I know there was a rapid transit line, you know, scheduled to go there, and then it isn't happening anymore. So it seems like on the city side, there's, you know, the idea of Glenwood keeps changing. So.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Ben?
Anyone else?
Yeah, do you think it's a possibility then through the PDR process that there might be some trees added along Glenwood?
The question can certainly be raised at the PDR meeting. Yeah.
You think they would grow?
It is on the north side of the building, but there's species that the street trees are made, you know, that they can grow in shadow. The question will be is, once you put a street grate in there, is from the edge of the street grate to the property line, if the city has enough space for its standard sidewalks and what its standards are in the right of way. So.
They don't worry about standards in Bass Creek Valley, trust me. They don't care about that. Just tell Paul I say hi.
Yeah, the sidewalk is not walkable at the present time because of all of the things that are in the way. But you could, I'm sure that the construction is going to make those things go away, or a lot of those things go away. I mean, there's impediments where you couldn't drive a wheelchair down that street. You just couldn't do it. There's not enough room. And I just want to say, just on the diversity point, just involving this many rental units on that street becomes a diversity in it inherently, simply because of the people who would occupy those kinds of spaces. And because this is really a transit-oriented development. I mean, there's going to be transit down that street sooner or later. And I just think this is what the street has needed for so long, instead of institutional and nonprofit buildings built on a street that is supposed to be a commercial corridor. I am 100% in favor of this project.
Is it fair to make a note that maybe the general consensus of your board is that of your board members is that you'd like to see street trees on Glenwood? If we were to mention this to city staff?
Yeah, I think that was part of the original master plan, yes.
Okay.
I'd agree with that.
To make Glenwood a pleasant experience for pedestrians to walk.
Particularly if they will grow.
Yeah.
That's true too.
Thank you, David.
And particularly if there's enough space for them. And a wheelchair.
We have, David is sitting, waiting to tell us about Southwest LRT. And earlier, I
Just
saw.
excuse me, did we finish voting on a recommendation or
No,
not?
that's why I'm saying we need to wrap this one up.
I
Okay.
believe Dina's calling the question, so I think we're going to need to vote on it. I'm not sure how to monitor the vote, but
Let's just, not to put anybody in a corner or anything, but okay, I'm just gonna vote yes. Maybe we can go around. I'm gonna go vote yes, and I'm gonna ask the developers to please seriously take into account the feedback that you heard in terms of like affordability and maintaining, making sure that the people that live here now can still live here.
why
Well,
don't we?
in the letter that Vita writes, she could include something about us preferring more affordable housing and also us preferring trees along Glenwood.
I could,
Problem.
I could support that.
Yeah, not a problem.
Let's proceed with the other members who have voting, who can vote. To just-
Michael is next.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay. David,
Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
okay, Chuck. Okay, Tara,
I'm
Not-
holding
I'm
on.
no longer a member, remember?
well, that's what she says, but I just got a note, what, 3-4 days ago saying that you are from Nicole. So,
I'll abstain from voting for now.
okay, Ben,
Just to clear that up, though, no, I said that Tara was no longer a representative, although the board, it's a long story. Anyway, that
Is
that
Chuck
what I
a
said,
voting?
so it's fine.
Is Chuck a voting member? Because I thought Sergio was one of the business
Sergio
reps.
is also a voting member, yes, from
So
the
then
business.
who are the 4 business representatives?
Can we leave that for later?
Well, it affects who can vote.
We've got more than the 9 that we need.
Okay, but still, if Pat and Chuck are voting, then where is Sergio?
Chuck's not voting.
Oh, Chuck's not voting. Okay, Chuck. Okay, so Chuck and Tara are not reps.
Well, neither of them are voting. You know that much.
Okay, well, okay.
Ben?
I abstain, but I support the additional language that Vicky mentioned regarding affordability and streetscape.
Okay. I will send a letter out. To whom do you wish it to go, Aaron? Aaron?
It can be addressed to the planning commission or to our planner at CPED, which is Andrew Franz.
Spell the
And
last name.
F-R-E-N-Z. And I do have your email, Vita, from the meeting link, so I can send you his information.
That would be lovely.
And then one more request from somebody on this. Can you, Aaron, can you circulate or send me your slide deck so that I can send it to the group here?
Sure.
Thank you.
And then I think I have your email from this thing too. So
Perfect.
otherwise, this is public record also. So
Yeah, I looked. I couldn't find it in a quick Google search, but it would take longer if you just send it to me. That'd be great.
Yep.
Okay, can we move on to the next item on the agenda?
I also want to let people know that Jeremiah Ellison was there. He came in about 6:20 something or other and then left about 5 minutes later.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
One just small part to this is I would ask the developers to look at, I realize there's certain requirements the city has for sidewalks, but I would also ask that look at it, what could be done with textures or colors or something to define this, to build some kind of character to it that's beyond the standard gray concrete. And I know there's going to be limits and restrictions, but think beyond the box on that, just so we can get something that begins to show more excitement. It'd be wonderful if this was Rio de Janeiro or something in colors and everything, but anything that works.
Don't make it that orange that ugly building has just before you hit Lake Street off.
Well, yeah, I don't want to pick the colors.
No, I'm just saying that
look at
would,
it,
it
yeah.
just stands out awful.
Yeah, I think we'll have I think we'll have other opportunities to talk about some of this.
Aesthetics, yeah.
One
Yes.
more thing on this, it sounds like Eric dropped off due to internet issues and he didn't get to vote. So Eric, we were just running around trying to get whether or not we were supported sending a letter.
Yep, sorry. Yeah, I think I would strongly encourage the contingencies to be added, but with those contingencies, I would vote to support it.
Thank you, Eric. Okay.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
everyone.
much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looking very much forward to your development starting.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, who's next on the agenda?
David is.
Okay,
Southwest
David.
LRT.
All right, and just a time check. How much time should I try to keep this to?
Well, we've got an hour left of the meeting, and I'm not sure, do we have anybody here to talk about TOPA yet?
No,
Okay.
because that was not originally on the agenda. It was only because Council Member Ellison was going to come.
Oh, I see.
And that was what he wanted to speak on, that I added it to the agenda.
Okay.
I think
So
we
we can
should, I
remove
think
it
we
off
should
the
add it to the
agenda.
next meeting. I just came from a TOPA meeting by the Landlords Association of Minneapolis, and man,
You guys, I'm not dropping off the call, but I'm going to have to step away for a minute. So if you
okay.
call on me and I don't answer, it's I'm not back yet.
All right.
Thanks for that information, Pat.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to drop off here in the next 5 or 10 minutes to go to another Zoom meeting. So I'll disappear, without saying goodbye.
Okay.
So is there anything in addition to light rail on the agenda for tonight?
Yes, training.
Okay, oh, good.
I
So we
wanted
will
to
have,
go through so that people understood what it is that ROC stands for.
perfect, okay.
Ben?
Will that take about 10 minutes or what?
No, I don't know. It depends on what questions people have. Is Ben
let's
still
try-
there or
let's
has
try-
he left?
Let's try to
Okay.
leave.
Yeah,
Ben?
no, I'm here.
Can you send me a small or a paragraph of what kind of language you want used for the lower affordable and why? That I could incorporate into the letter I send.
Okay, yeah, I
I
can
have
do
no
that.
problem doing landscaping, but I'm not the expert on what you just mentioned. The EMI, the lower EMIs.
Okay, and then are you sharing that with the
It
whole
goes
group?
out as a draft to ROC and then I
Okay.
send it out.
Yeah, I can draft that part of
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, David, let's get going with your presentation on the Southwest LRT, and let's see if we can be done by 1:45 so Vita can do a presentation.
Sounds great. Well, I appreciate everybody having me here. I don't think that I've actually presented to ROC before. I know that you're probably familiar with my predecessor, who's now my boss, Sophia Guinness, especially during the design phase. I've been on the project a couple years now, and we are entering our 3rd year of construction on the Southwest Light Rail project. Vita, I previously, earlier this month, gave an update to the Bryn Mawr neighborhood. Maybe some of you were on it. Prior to that, we did an update that was kind of geared toward just a city Minneapolis general update. It was marketed as a town hall. Both of those events are online, both presentations and video that cover kind of the entire Minneapolis segment and respectively kind of the Bryn Mawr segment. Tonight, I kind of modified the Bryn Mawr and kind of switched things up for Bassett Creek Valley. A lot of the information is somewhat similar. We're kind of dealing with similar activities in this area, but I just wanted to give you a brief update as to what you can expect in 2021. So I'm going to share my screen here, hopefully. Everybody see that?
Yes.
All righty. Let's see. So if you were on Bryn Mawr or at the town hall, you've probably seen some of this before, but I just wanted to give you a brief recap and overview. I think most folks here know what's going on with Southwest Light Rail as far as the basic setup of the project, 14.5 miles, 16 stations. But the thing that I always have to remind people, because there's always a few folks that need that extra little bit. This is an extension to the existing Green Line. So just remember, of course, getting on at Bassett Creek Valley or Bryn Mawr takes you not just to downtown Minneapolis, but all the way to downtown St. Paul as well, with, of course, the ability to transfer in downtown Minneapolis to go on the Blue Line down to the mall and the airport. Focusing, kind of zooming in on the Bassett Creek Valley station area. Look at that, we still have roll plots that don't show Van White. I have no idea why we've never updated that, but we haven't. So it's kind of penciled in there. But this is the Bassett Creek Valley, formerly Van White Station area, which is a passenger drop-off and walk-up station with notably the pedestrian connection from the Bryn Mawr Meadows using the loose line regional, kind of a newly constructed loose line regional overpass. Of course, there's also vertical circulation stairs and elevators at Van White Boulevard coming off of the bridge down that takes you directly onto the station platform. A couple of renderings that just show you, this is kind of a real far back view from under 394, giving you an idea of the scope of the massing of the station and the PED connection, the loose line connection. And this is an old rendering that has not been updated. I actually didn't use it on purpose for previous meetings, but I did want to show it. I wanted to give an alternate view. What it does not show is the corridor protection barrier that we are going to talk about in a little bit. So just make note of that when looking at this later or sharing, that this is kind of a rendering from when we submitted our initial packet to the federal government for our full funding grant agreement before the corridor protection wall was officially incorporated. Like I said, we're entering our third year, and we've made a lot of progress overall on the project. It doesn't necessarily feel like that if you're going through the Minneapolis segment, but if you go out west to the Eden Prairie, Minnetonka, Hopkins area, and even St. Louis Park, the suburban stations and segments, you're seeing a lot of work done. A lot of structures are coming out of the ground. Stations are starting to pop up. You'll see things like pedestrian underpasses, the trail underpasses under places like Blake Road. So a lot of progress is being made in Minneapolis. It is a little bit slow going, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in just a few. But we are right in the meat of the project of building out the civil part of this project, this structures, track, and stations. Just giving you, I'm sure everybody was aware that we did receive our full funding grant agreement last year on September 14, which was a big milestone. And we about a third of the project is done. As I said, it doesn't sometimes feel like that, but a lot of progress has been made. One notable milestone is that and it was a heavy lift the first year plus of civil construction, was getting a lot of the private utility work done. But most of that is out of the way. We've got a few more pieces of that left to resolve throughout the corridor, but that's a big deal. And then, of course, we've got a number of stations and bridge structures underway. One station, notably, that is not yet under construction is Bassett Creek Valley. I would kind of count Bryn Mawr in that as well. You've seen the big dirt pile over at Bryn Mawr, but that's just a start the foundation work for that station area, but you really haven't seen much construction on either of those two stations. So, but that will change certainly in the coming months, year-ish. I wanted to start off, and I kind of started with this. Well, Project Director Jim Alexander kind of talked through this at the Bryn Mawr meeting. But one of the chief construction challenges that we've reported on over the past couple of months, and you may have seen this reported in media as well. In January, the project did come out, the Met Council came out with an announcement that we might anticipate the possibility of delay on the project. We do not know exactly what that means in terms of how much of a delay, what impact that is to the cost of the project yet. That is something certainly that our staff, and in conjunction with the contractor, they're working diligently to figure all of that out. But it's pretty safe to say that the project is likely not going to open in 2023 as planned. And this is one of the big reasons why. So what we have is a challenging situation down in the Kenilworth corridor at the tunnel site. We knew it was going to be challenging no matter what, and it's been made all the more challenging by unpredictable soils in this area immediately adjacent to the Calhoun, well, now formerly Calhoun, now Cedar Isles condo development, which is the old grain silos that are now condos. We need to pivot there in terms of our construction method for retaining the soil in that area. So we're not altering really the design of the tunnel itself. We are altering the design of the support of excavation method that is used to just keep everything upright and out of the way of the construction site so that they can construct the tunnel walls, floor, ceiling, etc. We need to do this because the press-in piler that we were using to avoid vibrations in the area was causing an amount of soil settlement that was unacceptable to the project. Out of an abundance of caution, we were not yet in any kind of dangerous situation yet, but we decided to discontinue the use as we approached Cedar Isles, and the decision was made to pursue an alternative construction method, which is a secant wall. I won't go into the specifics of that, but just know that it does take time to design this alternative method, which does result in a delay. We have that design pretty much figured out. We're kind of running through the final steps of that. There will be, of course, more to do with that in terms of negotiating the cost of a change to the contract with the contractor. So it's not something that's going to be implemented right away, but certainly those who follow construction news on Southwest Light Rail will know when that phase of the project gets started. Just giving you an idea of where that is. Of course, that's down near West Lake Street. Now, the other one that affects this area, the Bassett Creek Valley area, a little more, is the corridor protection wall here that's between freight and LRT. This is not a new condition, but due to how the contract has been structured and bid, the corridor protection wall, while it was worked through in design, it could not formally, due to the timing of negotiations with Burlington Northern, it could not formally be incorporated into the project scope and budget until those negotiations were done. So we are only now doing that, which is what results in this change condition to the contract, and results again in a little bit of delay when it comes to completing the segment of civil construction in this area. I think a lot of people were, I'll get into the corridor protection wall a little bit more detail in a few minutes, but just giving you an idea, it's about a mile long. It extends from basically the Bryn Mawr station over to Glenwood. It fills in. A lot of people probably remember, I think it was 2017 when this design was worked through with the community. But it's still a challenging phase of the project or a design element of the project, just because it's so long and requires work next to an active, very, very active freight railroad. In terms of key activities in Bassett Creek Valley, these are kind of if you don't take anything else away from my presentation tonight, just, this is kind of the slide that gives you the best idea of what you can expect to see this year as you look out into the rail corridor. So we are going to get started on the corridor protection wall this year, likely in the next month plus. They'll start earthwork operations for the wall. I don't know exactly where they're going to start, but I would say they're probably starting at one end or the other. They've kind of already started the very beginning of it, if you will, or the kind of the tie-in over at Glenwood, but they'll start it in earnest, probably more toward the Bryn Mawr area this spring. And that will be a project, even though it will crawl along and for that mile, that will be an element that will last into 2022. The construction of that wall. Bassett Creek Valley Station, we do expect to have some limited pile driving in this area for station elements. Primarily, pile driving is needed to set the foundation for the elevator pit, which is similar to the Bryn Mawr station. Whenever there's an elevator pit, they need to set those foundations. So that's likely to happen this year. I wouldn't expect to see too much additional activity at Bassett Creek Valley in 2021. Stations in Minneapolis right now, the contractor seems to be trying to make as much headway as possible more on the west half of the corridor, kind of in the suburban stations, and then move east. Of course, if there's some sort of complication or extra crews available, things like that, that could change. But for right now, I would say we'll see limited activity at Bassett Creek and Bryn Mawr with much more of a focus in 22. You'll also see some freight rail improvement work that's mostly toward Bryn Mawr, but you might see a lot of that equipment moving between kind of in the BNSF Wayzata corridor as well. Just doing some of that freight rail improvements to the south there, kind of right where kind of Kenilworth comes into Bryn Mawr here. And then I'd say, another thing to keep an eye on is as you all were talking about kind of this experience on Fremont, and I think it was brought up from an easement perspective, some of the work that the council plans to do in terms of pedestrian improvements on Fremont Avenue. That work certainly is still part of the project. It is very uncertain as to when it will happen. And that is because the contractor regards kind of pedestrian improvements and sidewalk work as filler work. It's stuff that can be done with a crew that may be stuck somewhere else, and they can redeploy somewhere with relatively little effort to go tackle something like sidewalks or ped ramps. So that being said, it doesn't absolve us from ample notification and to the community to make sure people are aware, especially businesses in this area, are aware that we plan to do this work. But it is uncertain as to when it can happen, because it really can be squeezed in anytime within the overall project schedule. So
David,
possible for 21.
David, let me interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
When you're talking about Fremont Avenue North, let's say we start at Van Wyck, how far up Fremont Avenue are you going?
To Glenwood. All four corners of Glenwood and Fremont are getting new pedestrian facilities.
So that this new development is going to have fresh sidewalk from your project?
Well, that's a issue that needs to be resolved or coordinated. There was outreach from Aaron Goldstein to the project office regarding this, and the question basically was, can the basically new property owner or can the developer count on the project office's cooperation? in harmonizing plans. And I get the policy, I guess you could say, or the position of the project office. And I checked on this with, if you know, Ryan Kronzer, our assistant director of design, was once, of course, he's very familiar with City of Minneapolis, review processes for development. He said as soon as there's a kind of a move through the site planning process, that's when they should engage the project office on getting that together. So there is a line of communication. There is an understanding that will probably happen. It's just not happening quite yet.
An even bigger issue was we talked about the four corner charrette a few years ago. Ryan Kronzer actually directed that charrette for the AIA. So.
Got it. Yeah, we are facing a lot of that in other parts of the corridor as well, specifically West Lake Street area, where there's a lot of development as well that kind of butts up against or is not at odds with, but just interacting with planned project elements like road work or sidewalk work. So it's not unheard of, and we figure it out. It's kind of a case-by-case process.
And one more question on the
please.
sidewalk and road work. If it's as there's staff available or as there's workers available to do this work, and let's say they haven't finished, do they finish the work before they go back to wherever they were? They don't leave it high and dry until they got another block of spare time?
Yeah, I read some issues with that on 35W. I think it got some press coverage of things being kind of unfinished, and especially sidewalk work, which there are ADA accessibility concerns there, first and foremost, safety concerns. City of Minneapolis has made it very clear to us, to the contractor, to the project office, that you get in and you get out. You do the work and get out. You don't let something linger. So they've been up to now. The public works staff that we work with are very connected with everything we're doing. And of course, if there's any kind of need for roadway permits, obstruction permits, they make sure that we are doing exactly that, Veda, not just leaving things unfinished.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
No worries. Please. Sorry, I have my screen sharing, so I don't see everybody if there's their hands raised or anything.
Oh, I have a very futuristic question when we get to that point, or do you want me to do it now?
Let's leave it, Vicky.
Okay, let me know when I can do it. Okay.
All right. I'm almost done, actually.
Okay.
Too. But this is just kind of the overarching view of what to expect. So definitely some vibratory activities over at Bryn Mawr, at Bassett Creek, over at Glenwood. I'll mention too that scope of that delay. One thing that was messaged early on in the project, I'll return to this for a second, that the question of delay. One thing that was messaged by the project office when we closed Glenwood was it was about a 2-year closure. That is not going to be the case. We do not expect Glenwood to reopen in 2021. I think the chair and Jim both talked about that on the town hall, but I wanted to reiterate that to this group as well, that both Glenwood, the road, and the trail under it, unfortunately, are likely not going to open in 21. There's just too much to do, and it's in such tight quarters that it's not possible. But just showing you what we're planning here. The other thing just wanted to mention in this area, of course, there's not a lot of very close residential in this specific area, but out of Linden Yards is where the concrete is coming for various project elements, especially the tunnel. So you've got constant truck traffic. And of course, every effort is being made to keep trail users safe when it comes to their interactions with trucks. If you're ever out in the trail too and seeing some sort of signage that's missing, especially at potential conflicts points with trucks, that's really important. And we want to know about it right away, because that's a big deal here is keeping trail users, what part of the trail is left open. We need it to be safe as trucks cross. Just wanted to go through the corridor protection wall very quickly. Again, this is the scope of the wall. It's very long and it takes a long time to build. They're not driving pile using kind of the vibratory hammer or a hydraulic pile driver. They're drilling shafts for the wall. It's going to take a very long time to just drill shafts every I think it's 3 to 5 feet for a mile to pour concrete. So it's going to be a very long effort for this corridor protection wall. We do plan on working Saturdays in this area for the CPW, and we do expect to see some schedule savings by doing that. It's unfortunate we don't want to work Saturdays if we don't have to, but we've done the analysis, and that would really make a big difference in getting conditions back to normal in this area for trail users, for communities. So we do plan to work Saturdays specifically for the CP corridor protection wall. We're not allowed to do high vibration activities during that time. So even for the folks that live over across the meadows, it's going to be earthwork. You might hear a faint rumbling of an engine, but you're not going to hear ting, 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 or any of the big high vibration, high noise activities that may happen during the week. I mentioned this already, the design history of Bassett Creek Valley Working Group regarding the corridor protection wall, but a lot of familiar names on this group, but just to show that this was certainly a community driven process with this in terms of looking at the aesthetics and textures and graphics, what was able to be done with this wall, so it's not just a big gray piece of concrete. And a lot of those features are being implemented. These images I'm not going to go through all of them, but they are available in the Bryn Mawr presentation. They actually have the entire segment shown, and I put a few in today just to show, again, kind of the updated rendering of what that would look like, especially at the Bassett Creek Valley station. Gives you just an idea of the scope, like how far that wall is on the trail side. So it's really, especially at the Bassett Creek Valley station, that wall is really not intrusive. And of course, most of the traffic that will see the wall from the west side will be going over it on the loose line in this area. Just one plug for, we can do a few Q&A questions and answers here. But I just wanted to plug that I do, some of you are on this email list already. Please sign up for the corridor-wide construction updates, and that's at the main swlrt.org website. Also, if you are interested in getting kind of these community-driven updates from me, such as like when you can expect more traffic on the haul routes for this upcoming concrete pour down at the tunnel, please email me and I'm happy to add you to that list. It's relatively informal compared to the construction like corridor wide list, but I just try to get those communications out every so often. Sometimes they're targeted to a specific geographic area, and sometimes we're blasting wholesale to all of Minneapolis to make sure the message is spread far and wide. And of course, I hope everybody has the construction hotline number somewhere handy. That's certainly, we want to drive traffic to the hotline if you ever see things like signage or out of place or something in the corridor that you don't think should be happening. Please do not hesitate to use the hotline. It's been very successful so far. So I will unshare. Let's see.
Okay, is this a good time for a question?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you so much for the great presentation. It's been a long time since I've really gotten a good feel in terms of how things are moving, and it's very heartening to see that things are really actually moving along fairly well. So thank you for the presentation. My futuristic question is, okay, I'm sorry, you guys, it's one of those. If there is an infrastructure bill that's passed that includes employment opportunities for infrastructure, would the project office be going after more money to, say, hire some of the unemployed people from the Harrison neighborhood and points north or throughout the city?
Vicky, that's a very complicated question for me to answer right now.
But if you could
Here's-
just sort of think about it and pass it
Yeah.
along.
Yeah, I will. And here's what I'll give you without speaking out of turn. Here's what I'm thinking about here is that since the project's been bid, I haven't heard any news of, say, going after additional money for those purposes. I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility. But I know that once the project is bid and, certainly there is a workforce committee that convenes to talk about these issues, but really once we're in the thick of construction, a lot of that really rests on the contractor's shoulders.
So then
Certainly,
if Harrison wanted to perhaps bring this issue forward, they would be bringing it to whoever you've contracted with rather than to the project office?
well, what I'm saying, Vicky, is that they've already agreed to kind of certain benchmarks, right?
No, but this would be
Yeah.
if there's a realm of new money coming available. This is, again, very futuristic and just sort of a thought thing.
Let me take it back, Vicky, and see who would be best to target. Yeah, because
Okay,
I don't know who the person is right off the bat, but I don't know if it's. But I'll just say that the contractor, manages a lot of that, like how they are going to, procure subcontractors, things like that. So it's and on this kind of project, it's playing chess for sure. Like it's a very complicated. Yeah.
If there's
David,
jobs
when
to be had, then I think we want to go for them, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I'll say too that I think this group probably follows this very closely, maybe even closer than I do, about kind of just Metro Transit in general. That Metro Transit in general taking advantage of whatever money is available to bolster training opportunities and certification opportunities that create pipelines for future projects as well. I think those are real things, real initiatives that they're working on, both for in-house jobs in Metro Transit and also trying to connect them to future projects.
Thank you.
David,
I have no more hard questions.
when you have an answer, can you send it to me and I will send it to the larger ROC?
Yeah, absolutely, Vita. Yep.
So everybody has the same information.
Sure thing. So full of good news. We're not opening on time and you don't get Glenwood back.
I do have a question. You
Yes.
said it's going to be more expensive because of the secant wall and so on and so forth.
Let me just say, I don't know. We don't know the implications of cost. Remember, I mean, we're not asking the feds for more money, right?
I was going to say, how do you ask for more money?
And we don't know if we need to yet. That we do have a contingency built into the project budget, and that certainly is one of the big parts of this, is assessing what the impact of these different scope items is on the project budget overall, and and as a part of that, the contingency.
Any other questions? David, thank you very much for such a thorough presentation, getting us updated. We haven't heard this for a long time. I appreciate
Certainly.
it.
And I'm happy to be back anytime, as often or not as you want. Thanks for your time, folks. I really appreciate it. And I'll follow up with an answer on that, Vicky.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care, all.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, I guess we're to your ROC training, Vita.
Okay. I emailed out some documents starting back in October of 2000. I'm assuming everybody got the letter from Chuck Lutz that invited the neighborhood associations, Bryn Mawr, Harrison, and the business association to send representatives to the new, what are they calling it? They're calling it commission, city appointed commission. And my understanding is that Those who've been invited to send membership can withdraw if they wish, but the ROC keeps on standing and will continue its, because it's a commission and not just whatever. To understand what it is that ROC was assigned to do, we are assigned, I'm assuming all of you did get the paperwork, yes, no? You didn't,
Yeah, I
So
did.
huh?
I didn't get it, but was it Dave Stack that noticed that my email was bouncing back? And so
Yes, your email is bouncing back. It's blocked. It says blocked.
okay.
Vita, I wasn't able to open your large file that had all those. Yeah,
I
different
don't know.
documents in it.
Okay, I'm not an adept at the computer and I managed to photo all of these and send them out, but I don't know whether you got it. So I will just read a few things. And if you have questions, you're welcome to ask. One of the things that the city, when they created the ROC, was to review development applications for the Bassett Creek Valley. And quote unquote, it's expected that Harrison and Bryn Mawr neighborhoods would use the ROC as an advisory committee in neighborhood development review process. Okay. ROC is supposed to act as an advisory committee in the prioritization and staging of activities. Act as an advisory committee in the formulation of a redevelopment plan and redevelopment plan modifications for the area. Review MCDA land dispositions. MCDA became CPED later. So review CPED land disposition actions. Recommend modifications to the master plan as needed. And we have already done that. When the blue line wanted to go through the Bassett Creek Valley, they asked us to modify the master plan so that they could have, what was it they called it? A square? A commercial square at one point in where the master plan is, and we did make that change. This is Harrison neighborhood has got 4 reps. Bryn Mawr has 4 reps. The mayor has 1. Ward 5 council member has 2. Ward 7 council member has 2. Representatives from the businesses in the area are 4. And representatives from the Friends of Bassett Creek. So Dave Stack, as far as I know, Dave, you're still on Friends of Bassett Creek, right? And you're
Right.
still the primary.
Right.
So you are still a member of ROC.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So is Fred an alternate?
Who?
Yeah,
Fred?
Fred Olson, alternate, yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
And then are there reps from the railroad?
There's
is that-
supposed to be, but they have never in, okay, 21, 22, 23. In the 23 years that we have been going, I have never seen a railroad rep, either CP or
BNSF.
or Burlington Northern. Have you, David?
Well, we know them because we bought land from them, but they are
They're
notorious.
non-existent as far as we've been, all
They're
our
very-
efforts have gone.
Yeah, they're recalcitrant.
Yes. We're supposed to review development proposals, both neighborhood and ROC recommendations, and forward them to the Planning Commission, to CPED. We are separate in terms of, we may have a completely different view of what that development is from either Bryn Mawr or Harrison, and it's for the Planning Commission or CPED. and the city development committee to review and decide what they want to take from all three of our recommendations.
Actually, Vita 4, because the businesses do are separate sometimes.
Yes,
The
you're
businesses, right?
Businesses, yes, they do. Our ROC recommendation has no more power and no more voice, so to speak, than either of the other three partners in the ROC. What else? We had several public meetings before the master plan was approved. And when the master plan was approved, the largest of those meetings was the one that we had at International Market Square, and there was some 230 to 250 people. And we showed them what we had, and then we came up with a completely different idea for how to present and for them to make choices. We did crossword puzzles, and they decided what they wanted to see in the valley. And then for the next round, they turned the pieces over, and that was the dollar amount of what that would cost. And then they resat at their tables and redid based on cost and what they wished to see. And the outcome of that is the design principles and guidelines. And I'll just read you the headlights, not the sub points. Enhance the area's natural features. Create a park-like setting in developed areas. Use the north-south connector, parkway, and elements of the greenway to shape land development. Preserve current and create new views and sightlines. Make certain that residential and business areas are developed on a human scale, are safe, sustainable, and respectful of the environment. Establish guidelines for the rehab of existing structures for new construction that encourage creative design in incorporating resource and energy efficiency. Create attractive and lively destinations and commercial addresses in which people work, do business, shop, learn, and gather. Explore proven and innovative planning concepts for best utilization of land. Bring order to the movement of people, vehicles, and goods. Encourage diverse development and creation of additional living wage jobs, as well as retention and growth of businesses in a manner consistent with the design principles and guidelines. And that's it. Those are the principles by which ROC tries very, very hard to move forward on any development that comes to our attention and on any development that goes through the valley.
If I may, because I think an important part of this is how we got to the plan that Bassett Creek Valley developed.
Please expand.
And that was from the bottom up. The ROC and the business community, the original plan that started all this was for an office warehouse concept to tear everything down and build these one-story things in that area. And so the group came together. The business community was probably the least interested in moving forward. But thanks to Steve Faber, he organized a small group of business and ROC, other ROC members to meet with some developers. We met with 4 developers. Ryan, how quickly I forget his name. The project man,
Rick Collins.
Rick Collins, thank you. Rick Collins was phenomenal. It
Yes.
came to us from Ryan. And basically Ryan took over and became a developer of record, brought in Hoisington for a planner, and we got a professional connection that helped develop the plan and had input from the community. We had started with, as an outgrowth of the Heritage Park developer, McCormick Barron, who gave us some money, gave Harrison neighborhood some money under urban development, I think it was their Urban Development Corporation, to set up a Main Street kind of program, which didn't coalesce. They sort of left us and went back to Toronto and left us in the lurch. But along came Rick Collins and said, you know, we'd like to look at this. And that's how the plan rose out of this. It was not the city. The city did not invest in this. And I think that's an important part of this. This came from the bottom up.
I agree with you. City has not, but go back further than that.
Yeah, may I go back further? I want to go back before there was ROC or before there was a master plan.
Exactly.
Initially, there was a plan to
By the
create
city
everything between
council.
anything between Cedar Lake Road and Lindale into an industrial park.
Yep.
And to basically bulldoze the entire area.
Yes.
That was the initial. It was, I mean, you can go back into the archives of the Star Tribune. It was covered by the newspapers. It was supposed to be this really, really, really big development, wonderful thing for
I
the
still have drawings.
Yeah,
city
Jackie
of
Cherry
Minneapolis.
Holmes was city council chair and Mayor Sales Belton was
Was
the
the
mayor,
mayor.
and they supported it. And both Harrison and Bryn Mawr and the businesses said no way, no how.
Right,
So they came
I mean,
back.
everybody sort of said, oh, wait a minute.
No, we said
And-
no.
And
Yeah.
well, I actually saying, well, wait a minute, is my way of saying no. I mean, previous to this, I don't think that the Harrison neighborhood and the Bryn Mawr Neighborhood Association and the Business Association, you know, people were sort of operating in their own little sort of universes. And this idea to bulldoze the entire area brought us together with a common goal of making sure that, again, from the Harrison's point of view, is you can have development, but you can't take our housing. And we want to be here when all is said and done. And the businesses had their goal and Bryn Mawr had their goal. And that's how this confederation of people came together.
Well, go one step further. What they did, what Sales Belton and Jackie said was, okay, folks, if you don't like what we have presented, why don't you put together a committee and draw up plans for the 150 acres that is Bassett Creek Valley. After 1 year, we went back to the city council and said, this is just huge, large project. There's no way that in 1 year we can come up with anything. We need more time. So they said, fine. They then created the new committee, and we were asked to write a master plan. And that's when Ryan came, and that's when Rick was working with us. We had Daryl Washington at the city and Tom Layton from the city directing us. And we came up in 2006 with a master plan that we presented on the same day as Heritage Park was presenting their plan. Now, Heritage Park was had money because they were a lawsuit that got money from the city for building their master plan. We did not have any money. We have never had any money. All our stuff has been volunteer and donations. And these are, the master plan was accepted. And as part of the master plan in 2006, we said, okay, city council, we have spent 5 years, 6 years building this master plan with help from Ryan. You need to make sure that there is a committee made up of all these people that have helped to make sure that the plan is not just put on a shelf and forgotten about, that the master plan is monitored and carried out. And that's when ROC was created. And that was 2006. And the letter from Chuck is from the first master plan. And then in 2006, the city came back and said, okay, you got it. If you look at the master plan that got approved in 2006, in the latter chapters, there is the thing that the city accepted, that they create a citizens committee that would, or commission that would monitor into the future to make sure that things did not get willy-nilly changed over because somebody had the money or somebody forgot or whatever. And so ROC has been busy doing that.
Well, if I may, I wanted to say that one of the things, I've been involved in a lot of these community neighborhood kinds of organizations, never as long, well, yes, the river stuff, but never as long as this. And I have to say that for all of the new people who are just hearing this for the first time, the people who I have had the opportunity to work with on this, and they're still there, and they've committed their time, but they really have done this with great sensitivity to all of the needs of this broader community. And I have to say, from my point of view, we from the business community had come to this as antagonists to the whole process, that we thought we were left out, and some people dropped out of the committee just because they still felt that way. But realistically, they've always been the business community is always, and Pat Carney is a testament to that, have always been a part of this and both committed to it and respected. So I think that's really critical, that the mutual respect is part of this.
It's also one of the first and only committees that the city council has put together that is made up of 4 entities: the two neighborhood associations, the business association, and the Bassett Creek folks. And so our voice was a pretty strong one because we were speaking for so many when we came up with the master plan. And understand, we had huge public meetings, and it was absolutely glorious to see how
I remember that public meeting that we had those big puzzle pieces and over 200 people, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you, Vicki, and Chuck for giving us a really nice encapsulated history. And I know Pat Carney is kind of nodding his head too. So we've all been there since the beginning of this, and are very committed to sticking with it and making sure we monitor what's developed in the valley.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing is, I don't know that any other part of the city's overall master plan has been planned like the Bassett Creek Valley plan has been. Beth could probably tell me, but I think this master plan is one of the few that came without cost to the city, basically, with the exception of staff, and that came, again, bottom up from the community. And a plan that was developed around from a developer and the community.
If I'm remembering correctly, Beth, didn't the city incorporate ours into their larger land use plan?
Yes, but you've got to remember that the new 2040 plan has been another iteration. So yes, this has been an amazing collaborative effort, but the focus on small area plans, which was really a big deal, about 20 years ago, the trend has been a little bit to more focus on kind of citywide efforts, which is more of the focus on removing single family housing only, in neighborhoods and that kind of thing. So again, for the benefit, particularly of newer members, I did just send some of you the PowerPoint that I presented a year ago too, to have more, another, something, an electronic document that you can go back to that references a lot of what Vita was speaking about.
Yeah, Vita, is what you were referring to, I didn't receive it, but does it include the charter?
What charter?
Well, does the group have a charter?
No, there's no charter.
So
there was a council action in 2000 that officially
Creating the commission called the ROC.
Yeah.
And that's it. And
Okay.
they decided what the membership should be. They decided overall what our tasks should be. And then it was left to us to come up with the master plan. And that's when we had all those public meetings.
So they did issue a list of tasks.
Where's Chuck's letter? Yeah, here it is. Yes, review of development applications, act as an advisory committee in the prioritization and staging of activities, act as an advisory committee in the formulation of a redevelopment plan and redevelopment plan modifications for the area, review MCDA, now known as CPED, land disposition actions, recommend modifications to the master plan as needed.
Okay. So was that in what you sent out and some of us didn't get?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I got to figure out how to do this.
Yeah, or who did get it if they're able to send it
Forward you the
around.
copies?
I have the letter from Chuck. I can send that.
Okay.
And Mackenzie, I also sent you the PowerPoint from
Thank
a year
you.
ago that
Yeah.
has a slide that talks about the breakout of the ROC group, and then a separate slide that has those
the membership. I saw your membership.
Of the ROC, basically.
The tasks. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, as someone who's passionate about this work and lives in the area and just bought and is planning on living here indefinitely, I really want to understand all of this, and I really want it to be clear and transparent and welcoming to new people. So I'm just like trying to sort through, like capture this oral history and sort through actual documents. And right now I'm just trying to understand who the reps are.
Okay.
So
Mackenzie, if you go to the city of Minneapolis, I think it's still there, planning department.
Yeah.
And Beth, doesn't it still have the master plan there, the 2000 and the 2006?
Well, I've studied the master plan. I'm just trying to understand what the initial
what the impetus was for how
group was tasked with, and then who the actual reps are, the current reps.
Yeah, and also Mackenzie, Harrison used to have within Harrison itself, a ROC/development/transit committee.
Right.
And there was there always was an ongoing orientation for new people coming on to ROC, just within Harrison, particularly from the Harrison point of view. Now, I don't know when that fell by the wayside, but I have a feeling that that's no longer happening.
Right. So I shared a document with you all in the chat where I'm just like, I get a different list of who the reps are depending on who I talk to. So, I know our time is up, but I wish this was like clear for everyone.
Mackenzie, I couldn't open that document. I tried typing in. So could you email it out maybe?
Yeah, sure.
You mean, Colleen, do you mean the one I sent out?
No, the one that Mackenzie sent in the chat feature. She sent a link to a Google document.
Oh.
Yeah, Vita, I couldn't open that document either. That you sent out the zip.
I was able to open the one in comments, but I wasn't able to edit anything.
Yeah, Well, I would love to just screen share or something because I mean, I'm happy to give editing preferences, but the problem is every time I ask, it's a slightly different list and I'm trying to come to a consensus.
I just wanted to note that there isn't a Don Olson on the.
Yes, I got that note. So it's Don Olstenson. Austenson. And yeah, so while we're on this topic, so Don, you're no longer a rep?
I believe I am.
I don't think he's been removed. I've never received a note saying he's been removed.
Okay, Vita. Well, I was a little confused by your message because you said he wasn't a rep, but he also hadn't been removed. So
he's on the ROC. I mean, he's been on the ROC as a
Don is still a representative.
Yeah. Okay. So Don is still a rep and he's considered the chair.
He's been chairing for us all along since '98.
Great. And are there any other positions such as chair or secretary?
No.
Okay.
No.
Over the years, we have tried to have a secretary and it has never worked out. And so Vita, who's always been taking notes at meetings, has always ended up, okay, the person who was the secretary didn't get the minutes out, Vita's going to do it.
Okay, so Don is the chair and Vita is the secretary. Okay.
One of the things that
No. When we went to online, I stopped taking the minutes because there's no way, my computer, there's no way I can talk and take notes at the same time.
Okay, so no secretary right now.
No, not right now. When we were physically.
one of the things, I don't know that this organization ever formulated this, but the city had a consensus, community organization consensus process. And it's kind of, I don't know that, and this is the way some other organizations I've participated in the city, where it's a up and down, you don't actually vote. And the idea that we have found is that just has been an incredible amount of respect and listening and kind of an acceptance. I don't think we've had contested issues in those 20 plus years.
Actually, we've had a lot of contested issues.
Yeah, Chuck, I love your sentiment, but I don't think everyone feels that the ROC is,
if you let me finish, I'm saying that the issues have been, there's not been a hostility. So if people have been, if there's been misunderstanding or lack of it, I think it becomes those things need to be brought to the table like you're bringing them up today. I've always felt that the business community were outsiders, and they always felt this way, and that they were the bulk of the ownership of the property that was in question, were small businesses, and they weren't listened to by the neighborhoods. I can tell you that Harrison did not listen to their business community until after a period of time when Larry was there and Maura was there, Maura Brown, and that was part of the problem with the people from the scrap yards, and everybody wanted to get rid of all of those areas, and Pioneer Paper has still survived. So I think that from that side, we tried to be, some of us of the business community tried to work with Harrison neighborhood and do things within that community. So I really feel that there's been a real serious attempt, and if there have been issues where there's not consensus, it's more because of lack of communication. I don't think anybody I've encountered has been hostile to one another. I think it's been trying to find understanding. So I would really stress, and I'm not a Bassett Creek Valley member because I'm not in the business anymore in that area. So I've taken myself out of it. But the bottom line.
Okay, thank you. I'm making that update.
Well, but we have allowed people to continue that have had this. I mean, I have a passion for doing the right thing in that area.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm not a rep either. I'm just trying to understand this whole thing.
And so how do we make this a better area for everybody concerned. And I think tonight with the new unit, everybody's concerned about the same thing. How do we make sure that the Harrison neighborhood people have the benefits of the new construction? I think that's a real important part of that. So I want to make sure that there's an understanding that we do want everybody to participate, or that Bassett Creek Valley.
I will add to Chuck, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, that by and large, if we can, we try to move forward with consensus rather than voting. And we have been very fortunate in that, but again, by and large, we have managed to do our work by consensus.
Well, there was.
But at the same time, I think it's important to say that there's been times that the Bryn Mawr neighborhood has not agreed with like a ROC position, and there's been times when the businesses have it. Just because the ROC takes a position, it doesn't mean that each of its component parts can't object to that position, and that has happened in a number of areas.
Yeah, but
and you know what? There are still business people in the valley who won't speak to me, so I know it's been contentious in the past.
To all of us.
Revisionist history. Okay.
I would just like to say that the last time there was a vote, you know, in 2019 it was to displace current Harrison residents and to demolish naturally occurring affordable housing. So in my mind, like that was still a really important issue where there wasn't consensus. And how do we avoid anything like that happening again in the future?
But Nicole, when you say there wasn't consensus, it was not consensus with HNA and HNA is moving forward. There was consensus within the ROC that we approved that development once it gets started. There is going to be and has always been differences of opinion between HNA, Bryn Mawr, the Business Association, and ROC. We are 4 different voices feeding into the city, all with different viewpoints. We're working with the master plan, the ROC is. Harrison is working with the needs of your neighbors and neighborhood.
I will say that meeting was one of my first ROC meetings, and I came in quite excited and left kind of scared off and telling
the one where the developer bought the houses?
The one where the vote was taken and half the meeting was spent on who could even vote.
But the cool thing is, Mackenzie, you're still here.
I am still here, but I was afraid to take an official position. And I'm still attempting to figure out who the official members are.
It fluctuates, is all I can tell you. It's as people tell me who is and who is not.
Roshan Sella Roshan.
Yeah,
Yes, it does.
so I
have
think that-
documents saying that we have 2 seats on the ROC, but I'll have to forward those to you guys. Now that we know,
I don't know about
the
that.
history and the pizza, I mean, I'm that piece I didn't know. Some other stuff I did know.
Yeah. I mean, so Vita, I think that's one of my concerns is that it needs to be public and it needs to be transparent who the reps are. So when you say that it fluctuates based on, you know, who emails you, that makes it really difficult for.
That's the best I can do, Mackenzie.
I want to clarify, it's not just that anybody can email Vita and say, I'm on the ROC. It's always been that the staff at Harrison has told Vita who the Harrison reps are. And there's been a designated person from each of these groups who communicate, these are our reps. Now, Harrison has had the biggest turnover in, well, maybe that's not true. There's been a lot of turnover. Some people come and they go, this isn't for me. Some people come and they stay. It's
And
always
some
been my
people- and some people
understanding that
just plain
before there's a
move.
meeting, that staff checks in with Vita.
Mhm.
Well,
Well,
in
Vita,
that particular meeting, Vicky, the issue was that we did not have full representation, and there was somebody who was, I guess, technically representing H&A, who had actually been asked to not be on our board because of certain issues. They hadn't attended a ROC meeting or a board meeting for a year, and then showed up to that ROC meeting and decided that they wanted to take a vote. We asked that the ROC wait to take that vote until we could, as a board, meet to appoint new representatives and to review our current representatives. And the ROC went forward anyway.
I think that's very unfortunate. So I think in terms of like moving forward, what would be the process so that if Vita is the primary point of contact, and I'm sorry, Vita, to be talking around you,
No, that's fine.
but if Vita is the point of, she sends out the emails and people, you know, how is she going to hear from, and the Harrison reps can say, how do you want her to know who can vote and who can't vote at each meeting?
Let me jump in here for a minute. We're,
After that vote, I'm sorry, Don, I'm just going to respond real quick. After that meeting, H&A like took up the issue right away at our next board meeting. We reappointed, or we appointed new members, and then gave that information to Vita. So, and the members that were appointed at that time are the same members that we have today. So that's been over a year. It's been
About
a year.
Yeah.
I want to jump in here. I just wanted to say the unfortunate thing for H&A at that time is H&A had not filled up the positions. And it's kind of unfortunate going to those meetings, which sometimes the ROC meets every 2 months, and creating a delay makes it a really difficult for people that are trying to develop something to move forward or not move forward if nobody can make a decision. So I think it's vitally important that all parties who have positions or the stated positions on the board from the city council's director keep those positions filled and try their very best to get the full complement to every ROC meeting. And I do know that each segment may also appoint alternates. So if somebody can't come, the alternates should show up. I feel much better hosting a meeting or chairing a meeting when we have full membership in on the issue, so nobody feels slighted. And I hope moving forward, that's what we'll have.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know that alternates are allowed, because that was something that wasn't.
Only if the primary is not there to vote. We do have permission.
Well, you mean all four, like for instance, all four from Harrison or from Bryn Mawr. Right. No, I understand that, but that's something that Bryn Mawr didn't understand. We've talked a lot about Harrison and their appointees, but Bryn Mawr kind of has its own confusion. Yeah, about, we don't have all four of our people show up.
I'm sorry. Denny's been for 10 years on the ROC.
Yeah, well, I just talked to Denny on Saturday and he said he didn't realize he was still a rep. He thought Colleen had replaced him.
One of the problems with community volunteers is that it always falls to the individual. And to say that somebody else is responsible. I mean, this is a totally volunteer organization. Yeah. There are no staff people. We're fortunate to have Beth and the city, but they're not running the organization. And we've had basically a single person that's handled this on a volunteer basis. So I think it really does come back to, just like me, I know that we no longer own whole property, so it takes me out of the mix. But I do, again, I have the passion. I would not vote here to make a decision, but I want to keep this and Vita and Don and Pat and Dave Stack and others have kept this organization running, and all on a personal commitment. And I really want to put it back to, if there are people that feel that they aren't hearing from them, they need to ask. They need to raise their hand and be counted. There's a comment that I always remember: people that show up are the ones that make the decision. So, and we've not kept people out as ever a meeting I've attended. There's never been somebody said you can't be here.
Mhm. Yeah, by no means am I saying people are being actively kept out. I mean, I absolutely believe in showing up and transparency, and I'm offering my services to help organize these files and, you know, kind of bring some of this information to the surface. So Vita, when I said, you know, it needs to be more transparent, I was offering to, you know, set up folders and make some of these documents public. So
No,
it's not as much on you.
Comment.
Yeah, I need to jump in again because, and someone's going to need to talk to Denitric. Harrison had an entire file cabinet of everything that had transpired from the time that we tried to get the tow trucks out of the valley. And when the carpet was changed, from that point forward, I have personally, because at that point I was still attending meetings, have been unable to locate all of that historical information. But there isn't anything, any piece of paper that was ever generated by ROC is someplace within the Harrison filing system.
When Jerry was chair of HNA, he borrowed all my files, and I've got stuff going all the way back to 98. And he had them copied one summer by Nicole. You guys have summer interns, right?
Yeah, I think you're talking about Dave, our former executive director.
No,
Dave Calling.
It was Jerry Schaefer who borrowed from me.
Yeah, he was the board chair. Him and
I think you're talking about 2018, though, the summer of 2018. Dave Calling had Step Up interns digitize the ROC files.
Right. And they took all of my files and they took them. And so you guys have everything up to that point. But I want to mention to Mackenzie, one of the things that has been very successful for ROC is how informal we are. We have not ever been, what do you call it? I don't know, organized to the point where, David, you're smiling.
We've used Robert's Rules of Order when it's gotten really contentious.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's been much more, let's try to get to a consensus.
Yes. And so when you say, I'll organize, I'll do this, I'll do that, we've not had a need for any of that. We have moved forward. We have been very effective thus far. We're getting people to move into the valley, and housing is being built. It may not be exactly what we want, and we will write a letter commenting on that. But by and large, we are listened to, and it's all done on a friendly basis, without.
I mean, some of the contention has been because there isn't organization or there isn't a clear understanding of who the reps are.
But my question is, contention from whom? We've not had any contention.
No, Lita, there's definitely been contention. Nicole was just speaking to contention, and the emergency meeting that happened last month was very contentious.
No, it's not. That's people asking questions and having diversity of opinion and sharing that diversity of opinion so they can understand what's going on. You're talking TOPA.
Yes, I'm talking about TOPA.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I don't agree with you.
I don't agree either, Vita. This organization has always been a place where everybody gets a voice. Not necessarily that the total outcome at the end might not be exactly what every individual wants, but every individual is encouraged, if they have a place on the ROC, to voice their opinion. And even those that aren't actually voting members have usually been encouraged to give us some additional information if they have it. So I don't think there's, as far as I can tell, there shouldn't be any reason for contention, because this committee has always been open to listening to everyone. And I know it occasionally, for some reason, not everybody got on an email list for certain things. I believe Vita is working very hard to resolve that. And I'd like to say one more thing is that I think we all need to thank Vita for all the hard work she's put in over the past 20 years in holding us together.
That's beside the point. The point is that we have argued and argued and argued. You may call it contentious, we call it exchanging viewpoints. And for some, it changes minds. For some, it doesn't. And when it's all finished and done, we've all said how we believe and tried as best we can to persuade others to believe as we do. So I don't think that was contentious.
Can I just say something real quick? So I am a developer. I come to the ROC and ask for feedback and input. I do the same thing with H&A. I do the same thing to a certain extent with Bryn Mawr, but all of our projects have been in Harrison. And so I'm really going to Bryn Mawr Neighborhood Association to try to get kind of comments that might be helpful that I'm not thinking about. But the engagement that I've had with both H&A over the last 5 years and ROC have been, I think, very constructive for different reasons. And I think ROC brings a level of depth of historical knowledge that is pretty unusual for neighborhood organization. And I don't really feel like ROC is a traditional neighborhood organization. I think, Mackenzie, you're getting to that. But it also doesn't have any, like, there's no legal binding authority that ROC has either, which kind of goes to how important is the organization. And I think, Mackenzie, what you're kind of pushing on is powers representation and clearing up representation to ensure that the power of the ROC is uniformly applied across all the representatives that are supposed to have a say, I think is important. But I think there's also a lot of power in the flexibility and the level of kind of friendliness and disorganization that is kind of unique to the ROC in a lot of ways. And I don't think, I mean, I agree with a lot of these comments that Vita's doing yeoman's work trying to pull this together on a pretty regular basis. And it's hard work. It's a lot of time. And I think it's out of trying to get the voices from the cross section that the ROC was codified for, to get those voices into the public record. And to me, that is the power of the impact that I've had from the ROC has inspired a lot of the twists and turns on our projects that we've put together in Harrison. And same with the engagement with H&A. And I think they are uniquely different, and I think they should continue to be uniquely different. And I also don't think that we need to have kind of silos of echo chambers. I think it's really important to get commentary from H&A and from Bryn Mawr and from the businesses into one place. But I think it's important to keep it relaxed and to keep it a little bit flexible and loose, because that's when you actually can break down the barriers to actually engage with, okay, this is my point of view. This is your point of view. Let me try to understand your point of view. That's the power of the ROC, is trying to get to that understanding with those disparate views. And I think if we try to tighten everything up and, well, I have a vote and you don't have a vote, and who's showing up so that we can push the votes one way or another, the power of the ROC is going to start getting diminished. And maybe that's the objective, but I don't think that's good. Honestly, I don't think that's good for the neighborhood. And so I'd be a little careful about that.
Yeah. So
Mackenzie, so there's no misunderstanding. Are you saying that you have some time that you want to put into ROC and that you want to work with Vita so that Vita has like somebody that's helping her do all the things that she's been doing on her own? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm really committed to ROC continuing to the benefit of everyone in the community. And so, yeah, I'm willing, when Vita says that, she's overwhelmed by tracking all the rep changes. I mean, yeah, that's something that I could help with. I really don't want it to come across as like trying to, what's the word? I think with structure comes creativity and some safety. And it's, you know, I really don't want to put like order to something that has been organic for so long. I just know that I'm not asking for a lot of order. I'm just asking for a little bit of clarification on a few things, because I've found it difficult to have conversations when I don't even know, you know, who the reps are, or we don't even know what the boundaries are. I mean, that was something that we were discussing in the last meeting, where what the boundaries even were of Bassett Creek Valley.
Well, the
Okay, so
boundaries
make
can
a
be seen on the
suggestion?
plan.
Can I make a suggestion? Mackenzie, can you, and because it's getting late, can you and Vita have an offline conversation? Because
Yes.
it may be that you can bring something to ROC that we need, and you may have a greater understanding of after much longer conversations about how things have operated. As you have noticed, a lot of us are getting gray hair. You know, I welcome somebody who doesn't have gray hair, that wants to learn everything that they possibly can learn about our history and how we function and how best to move forward. So my suggestion, if Vita is amenable, is that the two of you get together offline, and then come back to the next meeting with some sort of proposal.
Yes, we've exchanged a few emails, so I hope we can come together also.
Yeah, sorry, real quick. This is Eric. I've been trying to just make a quick comment. Dave, agree with what you said, Mackenzie. I think there is an opportunity maybe to offer a little bit more structure where we can. I don't think we have to Robert rules and organize this thing to death, but I do think there's some small things that we can do just to ensure that there's just that feedback loop between, you know, the reps, their respective associations. And I know that's kind of the onus is on folks like Ben and I for HNA with Don. I fully support that, but I also think as we continue to want to engage other people in the community, I think there's small steps we can take to make folks just be informed when they want to be. They don't have to be voting members, but give folks the transparency and information they might need. You know, if they do want to come to a meeting for the first time, I think we should help provide that environment. And I think we do organically to an extent, but I also think there's some very small and simple ways that I'd be more than happy to contribute, work with Mackenzie and and Vita as well. So just echoing some of the sentiments we've heard.
I want to make a point that really, I hear the term community and I don't want to be biased against HNA, but a lot of the thinking is that because that's the largest representation of single family and residences, not the business areas that we're talking about. But an important part of this is even on the broader part, and that is, used to be that tow trucks used to go down Colfax out of HNA. And one of the things that Bassett, the ROC has done is nag the city until we finally now have access off the Parkway, off the Van Wyck Boulevard, into a new reduced impound lot. And that's the broader community of the city. We kept trying to fight even having it within the community that we're talking about, the Bassett Creek Valley area. And so I think thinking on the broad terms too is not just that smaller neighborhood, but thinking about what happens in Bassett Creek Valley is going to impact the light rail, or when we talked about the bus rapid transit, and also when the Botno line was coming down Olson Highway. We've participated, and I think those are all out of our basic community. But keeping that in mind, that is the larger community that I think we have acted to try and participate in and make commentary on, representing the whole of not just this area, but the whole of the city. I think I'd like to think that the structure has benefited doing those things, and I'm at the other end. I'm slowly going into the sunset. Maybe not fast enough for some people, but I'm leaving into the sunset.
I'm trying to absorb all that knowledge or write it down. Before you go off into the sunset.
I think it's critical that, like everybody said, that we get new blood. But if by making this organization another committee of the city, we're going to lose the capacity to kind of go out of those bounds a little bit and voice our opinion on areas that don't fit into our structure. So I want to keep that openness and keep thinking about a broader, larger whole of the city of Minneapolis.
Yeah.
We've always argued, voted, and written letters, and really that's what we do. And that's all. And we make an opinion that not everybody on this board ever agrees with. There's always somebody whose nose is out of joint, but that's the way it works. And that's the way it works the best. We have kept people out of this neighborhood as often as we've attracted people in this neighborhood. And a lot of those people, you would be very sorry had we not confronted them and said, wait a minute, you don't want to do that here. And there's been a lot of
charter school on Glenwood.
Yes.
Charter school on Glenwood, bad idea.
The ski or the swimming place, ramp. We didn't get ramp D. We didn't get ramp D.
I really appreciate you all staying on so late and just kind of starting this conversation about improving. I think it's just growing pains and maybe this next generation coming in. So,
Mackenzie, this is Don. I think it's very difficult for somebody who's not had a little bit of time on the ROC to kind of jump into it and kind of understand. And some of us have been here for over 20 years. And so, we don't really think about it, but I think Vita did a good thing tonight by providing a little background, and the history we got from Chuck and Pat and some of the other members is very useful. But right now, though, I think we're way past time. I hope this extended meeting has been useful. I think we've had a pretty good exchange. I'd like to have somebody make a motion to adjourn at this time.
May I just say one more thing?
We have
just one short thing.
Next month.
I really want to encourage Harrison to resurrect the ROC committee so that there are people who may never come to a ROC meeting who would come to a Harrison meeting to hear what's going on with ROC, so that when the ROC reps come to a ROC meeting, they know how to vote. And that's the way you can, because development is not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's really complicated, and you can come into these meetings and be saying, I'm never going to come back. And so I am, my heart's with Harrison, so I'm only speaking to Harrison. I'm not talking to the businesses or Bryn Mawr. Those meetings, those internal Harrison ROC meetings were very effective. And I will move to adjourn.
Wait.
Vicki,
Our next meeting.
I would just like to respond real quick to that. So it's a little hard for us sometimes to prepare. I mean, for example, during our last board meeting last week is when the agenda, got set and was sent out for this meeting. So, there's definitely communication issues that make it a little difficult for us to be prepared for these meetings. But with that said, we do discuss the developments within the Bassett Creek Valley at our board meetings and also at our community development meetings.
Just an aside,
before you close down, our next meeting is April 20th. It has to be next month. We've got several issues to talk about.
I can speak for the business as a business representative. I don't know if Pat, whose office building was in Harrison neighborhood. There came a point where we quit getting notification, quit getting invited to Harrison meetings, and you sort of feel like you're not wanted. So I think we could have shown up, I know, but when Larry and Annie Young and those folks were still there, we used to have a strong connection with them. But as the new people have come in, and before we sold the building, you sort of got left out. And so it's a two-way street. I think it's and not on purpose. I'm not blaming anybody. We should have come to Harrison neighborhood and said, hey, we're not getting emails. And likewise, you have to understand there are people in the business community that are need to be involved. So I would suggest that do that. Find who's in the business community, because they would be perfect to be on the business representatives. The business community selects those people, but I mean, whoever's in the neighborhood, that'd be fine.
I will tell you that one of the joys of working on the ROC, besides developing the Bassett Creek Valley, is the fact that we are so informal with each other. There are no rules. As such, we vote when there's voting to be done. As I said earlier, we try to be consensus. And when we argue hard, because we're trying to persuade everybody else to our point of view. And if we don't succeed, we don't succeed. And we go with whatever the point of view is that the majority went with. But we're not HNA, we're not Bryn Mawr, BMNA, we are the ROC. We're a commission.
We're a confederacy.
Okay, so the C stands for commission, not committee.
I don't know.
I'm just trying to tease out some details. Okay, on that note.
You're asking for details that we don't have. You're asking for
well, I think it's just hard for people
have.
to join an organization if they're not sure if it's a committee or a commission or city sanctioned or not.
It is city sanctioned.
Once you've been on for say 6 months, you'll roll with the rest of us.
Okay, well, I've been attending for 2 years, and yeah, I don't think a title change
You've been
will.
attending
For 2 years, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I had a full year in that lunchroom.
Okay.
But this is the first time, I'm sorry, and again, I'm old and I haven't left the house for 14 months, so my memory's not great. But I do appreciate you bringing these issues up tonight.
Yeah.
But did you bring them up in the past year? I mean, this is a good thing that you're doing, because we need to move forward and we need to get past this stumbling, which I see as a stumbling block. So I'm
Yeah.
again going to encourage, you and Vita and whoever wants to work on this before the next meeting, please do so, because we want everybody to be able to participate. And to me, I'm sorry, it's like, it is my generation. Anarchy is our middle name. You may like more structure. We like anarchy.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you. Yeah. I had a whole round of emails with Beth about a year and a half ago, and now Vita and I have another round of emails going. So.
I can answer the.
We're apolitical. We're apolitical. We have not in the past taken political stands or political whatever.
Well, I'm not trying to push us in that direction.
Saying, we have not, like when, God, what was that thing that Harrison tried to get us to do, where the developer had to sign a contract that if they were late, they had to pay a penalty to HNA. I don't remember what that was.
Oh, you're talking lowercase p. I thought you were talking Democrats and Republicans. Okay.
No.
So just an answer, the commission committee, the city established the Bassett Creek Valley Redevelopment Oversight Committee. So it is a committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, people, I think it's time for us to shut down. I think we've been productive in the overtime, but I'd like to say goodbye.
Okay, I would too. But Mackenzie, did you see this discussion?
Yes.
This is what you call contentious. This is what I call discussion.
I do not consider this contentious. No.
Okay, but I'm saying this is what we do.
Yes, I understand that. Yes, this is sometimes the tone. Yes.
So just as a comment, for us to close, I've been recording most of this. I think Eric reminded me to start maybe 10 or 15 minutes in. I haven't figured out how to get this up onto the web because YouTube limits the amount of clips that you can do. So I think I'm going to try to get it up on Vimeo. And so I'm still working on it. You'd think I'd be able to figure that out. Haven't been able to do that. Hopefully I'll be able to send out a link in the next couple of days.
Once we get to doing physical again, I can start taking notes again, but I can't take notes and participate on a computer.
Well,
Let's have
perhaps
the goal
someone
of the
else,
July
perhaps
meet-
someone else could take notes. I mean, Vita, we don't want it to all be on you. So I think that
it's easy enough just to type when I'm talking.
I know, but we've got probably at least 4 months until we're in person. So
Yeah, no question. No question.
So Vita and I will meet, and it would be great if someone else would be willing to take notes.
We'll send out a note with a date and a time, and anybody who wants to join in the discussion may do so.
All right.
And I have a letter that Ben is going to send me some text on, and then I will send it out for the rest of ROC to look at.
Great.
Thank you very much, all of you.
Yep. Okay.
I'm ready.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
David, let us know what goes on. I heard
Bye.
the baby saying bye.
I will definitely do that. I'll send out some pictures.
Okay, good. Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.